Hi there. Just to introduce myself, my name is Hamida Ali. I'm a councillor for the Woodside ward in Croydon and the cabinet member for Safer Croydon and Communities. And I'm really delighted to be here as part of this really important debate just ahead of the start of National Hate Crime Awareness Week. And really glad to formally open the debate and really grateful to Metro colleagues for hosting it as well. There's a few things I'd like to say by way of introduction from the local authority's point of view. And as the lead for the administration on a number of areas, including community safety, importantly, equality and diversity, and our relationship with our voluntary sector, we believe there is no place for any form of hate crime in Croydon, including homophobia, biphobia and transphobia. And as chair of our Safer Croydon board, which is our statutory crime and disorder reduction partnership, it's also not just a priority for us as a local authority, but also for all of our partners. And as a result, tackling hate crime is the priority within our community safety strategy, alongside other concerns around domestic violence, around serious youth violence and the safety of our children and young people. Last year, we launched an anti-hate crime pledge. We wanted to share with the wider community our belief in zero tolerance for any form of hate crime in Croydon, and give residents and employers in the borough the opportunity to share that sense of solidarity against hate crime. And thousands of people have signed up to that pledge, and I'm sure if you search on Croydon Council's website, you can just encourage people to have a look for that and add their name and their support to that important principle. In Croydon, we have seen a rise in hate crime in the last 3 years. We recently completed our annual, or what they call strategic assessment, where we look at all forms of patterns of crime within the borough, including hate crime. And we have seen a steady increase when you look at 2017, 18, 19 and 20, and including in this year, where we've seen a particular rise by around 30% compared to the London average of about half that. The main, around 3/4 of the volume of hate crime that we see in the borough is racist hate crime, but the second most significant volume is homophobic hate crime offences, which feature around 10% of hate crime offences that we see in the borough, and a further 2% that are transphobic. So I think that's important for us to know and to understand, and I guess assurance to anybody watching this, that this is a priority for us. It's really important from our point of view that we are monitoring these statistics, including the types of hate crime that we're seeing in the borough. And as much, of course, as seeing that increase is alarming on the one hand, given that we know it's such an underreported crime, and I think particularly for LGBTQ plus people experiencing any form of hate crime, particularly underreported from those communities, I think it's really important that we are talking in every place that we can about how people can report and the importance of reporting, and that it does make a difference, that by knowing what the real picture of the experience of hate crime in our borough is, we are only then better placed to be able to tackle it effectively. And I think that's why our funding of Metro and the service that will be being provided in Croydon is so important. Really delighted. I'm also responsible for something called our Community Fund, which is the council's structural funding of the voluntary sector, and we made new funding agreements with a whole range of organisations for the next 3 years, and one of those was with Metro, recommissioning Metro, so really looking forward to hearing more about that later in the session. And I think that's so important from our point of view, because we want to support all our residents in the borough. We're currently been consulting on a new equality strategy for the borough, and seeking to engage with residents on these important issues for us as a borough. I think particularly given what we've seen in the last few months or so with the killing of George Floyd and the subsequent outrage globally, and how that's affected us in the borough, and exposing the ongoing persistent inequalities that we see on all kinds of axes. Of course, that's focusing on racism and the experience of Black communities in particular, but of course our Black communities experience lived experience in all kinds of ways. So our Black LGBTQ plus colleagues in the borough want to make sure that the borough is as an LGBTQ plus inclusive place for residents, and that's why our support for Metro is really important. And I suppose maybe just to add that we've also started a new partnership with Stop Hate UK as another means for people to be able to report hate crime incidents, conscious that people won't always have the confidence to go directly to police colleagues, although it's great to have our faith officer, Eileen Jenkins, with us on the panel, and such an important role in reassuring people about that they will be believed and that it is important. Experience, I think, from people who experience hate crime, it becomes something that you start to have a high tolerance for. You start to think it's just part of life, and what's the point in reporting? But actually it's really important that we know exactly what's going on in the borough and that we understand the full scale and that we're able to support people. So that's why we think that partnership with Stop Hate UK is really important, and I'd really encourage people to have a look at their website, www.stophate.uk. uk.org. There are all kinds of ways to report, including for BSL users. So just to reinforce that message. But I think I just only want to thank Metro again, and my council colleague Sharon Kilborne for all the work to put this important session together, and I look forward to hearing the debate. Thank you for having me.
Following on from some of what I heard Councillor Ali say, as you're aware that Croydon started a campaign, as pointed out, last July, where Croydon was saying no to hate. We've continued the campaign throughout the year with myself working alongside our hate and faith officers in the Met, spreading this message around across the borough. We've undertaken a number of anti-hate crime awareness training provisions to smaller organisations. We also support organisations in applying for funding to do anti-hate crime work. We've run a very successful, over the last 3 years, a very successful National Hate Crime Awareness Week with a number of campaigns and awareness raising across the borough. This year we have a number of events working alongside today with Metro Charity, but also with organisations across our BCU, so not just in Croydon, but also in Sutton and Bromley. Currently we've seen a spike in hate rhetoric amongst our migrant communities. So there's a big piece of work at the moment in Croydon where we're working with our refugee and asylum seeking communities, providing them with support, reassurance, as well as resources so they know how to identify if they have been a victim of hate, and also what to do if they are a victim of hate. So we're providing them with that ongoing support, and that'll be highlighted throughout the week. We're also doing a big piece of work with the faith communities, and I've worked really closely, myself and the former Met Faith officer sit on the Faith Together steering group, and we also have an Hate and Extremism Forum, which encompasses a number of our community organisations, our faith groups, and those that, including Metro City, who sit on the panel, and we talk about current trends, and that way we are able to direct the work that we want to do in the borough. So we're able to ensure that anyone that feels that their community or themselves as individuals are victims of hate know exactly what to do, how to report, because we appreciate that it is very important to report so that we know how to focus the work, but also what kind of support they can going forward after they've been that victim. So that work is ongoing. I will continue to raise a flag for Croydon saying no to hate. Now, I hope to be working alongside Metro as well as other community groups working on this agenda. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do now is suggest that we go forward with Taz, who's going to talk, introduce Metro as a charity organisation. I will then talk about Metro's services in Croydon, followed by the launch of the Croydon Hate Crime Service. So I will be sharing my screen and Taz will be talking for the first part of this presentation.
I hope everyone can hear me. welcome. My name's Taz Woods-White and I'm the Alliance Manager for Metro Charity. Metro first started as a LGBT phone support line in 1984. And can we have the next slide, Mark? And I love these graphics. So we basically, I wasn't expecting these beautiful graphics. So yeah, Metro is an equalities and diversity organisation, and we do have a vision, and it's for a world where diversity is celebrated, difference respected and valued, and where optimum health and well-being for all is our collective goal. And we work with huge amounts of identities, lots of different ethnicities, sexual orientation, sexual identities, gender identities, and we want all these to be inclusive for equal quality of care, really. And I think the important thing is as well, just in terms of the different identities, is that they do intersect. So we might have Black and ethnic minority groups who also identify as LGBT, and we have people with disabilities who also identify as LGBTQ, and lots of different intersecting BAME people who have disabilities. So I think that's important to have in mind when we're delivering services, that we don't all fit into different silos. So yeah, we work across 5 domains, and we work sexual reproductive health, community, mental health and well-being, youth, and and HIV and HIV prevention. So a lot of the sexual and reproductive health services do lots of sexual health testing, and within the community we've got huge amounts of community groups and community involvement. Mental health and well-being, we've got mental health drop-in for LGBT people, we've got different counselling services. For youth, we've got different youth services, and for HIV, lots of HIV testing and support and advocacy. And we've got advocacy services that kind of flow throughout all of the 5 domains also. Okay, next slide. So I think, yeah, okay, so we do have around 82 part-time, full-time and sessional staff. I think this is a snapshot of the time, because I think we have more active volunteers at current. And you can see how many volunteering hours over the year that the volunteers have given in time and the generosity of themselves to create such a fantastic organisation. So, next slide. And we have a very diverse staff team, I should say, as well. So yeah, okay, this is the slide I was expecting. So yeah, we've got over 100 services across our 5 domains, and we go from Kent and Medway, London, Greenwich, Vauxhall, and of course Croydon, with huge amounts of occasions of service over the year, and over 68,000 service users who have accessed all the different services. So yeah, as I said, since 1984, we started as a phone line. And it's funny because when my background is in mental health nursing, and I started working for Metro 17 years ago, and this was really a result of my experience working as a mental health nurse on the wards at that time, was I used to experience quite a lot of homophobic comments, and overt and covert, and it kind of made me feel a bit uncomfortable being a nurse on the wards at that time. So I wanted to go somewhere where I felt there was a community that I could feel I could be myself. And so yeah, I started at Metro. First of all, there was about 15 staff, and started volunteering, and then got a job within the mental health service, running a mental health drop-in for LGBT people and offering advocacy and crisis one-to-one support. And as time's gone on, now as you can see, we've got almost like 100 members of staff, and we've grown to a huge organisation. But I was expecting when I started that experiences of hate crime and hate crime incidents would have reduced by now, and the incidence of people with experiencing mental health issues within the LGBTQ community would have reduced. But in fact, it's ebbed and flowed, but the services are needed now more than ever. So that's been quite an experience for me anyway. So yeah, we've got different activities and projects and awareness days. So we've got the LGBT History Month that we get very much involved with, National Hate Crime Awareness Week. We also have Mental Health Day on 10th of October, World AIDS Day, 1st of December. And you can find all of these things on our website at metrocharity.org.uk.
Thanks, Taz. So now so my name is Mark Healey, and I'm the new Croydon Hate Crime Officer, and I'm taking over responsibility for our new project in Croydon, running our hate crime service. But before I do, I just wanted to talk about some of the other services that Metro provides in the Croydon area. If you go onto our website, there's an opportunity to filter our services, so you can narrow it down to by each of the areas, the London boroughs, and look up the services that are in your area. So I did this for Croydon, and obviously before my service was put up, we had 7 services that were listed, which is Croydon's HIV Healthy Living Service, the Advice and Advocacy Service for people living with HIV, HIV Counselling, the GMI Partnership, Metro Bridge LGBT Plus Youth Group, and 2 training provisions, which is relationship and sex education training, and then challenging homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying. And I'm going to talk about these services a little bit more. So the Croydon HIV Healthy Living Service is support for people living with HIV in Croydon. It's to help them live a happier, healthier, fulfilled life, provides counselling, advocacy and peer support, and get emotional and social and psychological support from our team. We provide advice and advocacy for people living with HIV, and there's practical and emotional support with benefits, housing and financial crisis, and any other crises that people living with HIV may come across. So if there's problems getting food, we provide food bank vouchers, we help with benefit applications, we can provide practical and emotional support and support with housing and benefit appeals. We provide HIV counselling, and this is a one-to-one counselling service for people affected by HIV in South West London. And it's basically to improve your understanding of yourself, to increase your own own sense of self-acceptance, feel supported by someone who understands you, work towards increasing your emotional well-being, and feel more able to manage challenging situations in your life. Now, the GMA is currently working, provides basically testing services with outreach teams that go out to venues to provide testing and STI testing services. I've spoken to Anders, who's one of the managers who looks after the GMI partnership, and he said that there's 3 different areas that are working on at the moment, and that's promoting HIV prevention under the Do It London brand, which is a pan-London campaign at the moment. I think it's been running 2 to 3 years now. There's a Fast Track Cities service at the moment, which is targeting the migrant populations. And when we said about migrants experiencing hate crime earlier, I'm thinking, actually, if we're providing HIV and health services to that community, it's the perfect way of us to work in harmony and hopefully hear some of those cases that are happening and actually encourage those people to seek further advice and support. And then there's the HPE, HIV Prevention England service, which is a mobile testing service for the Black African population or community. It's generally delivered in Lewisham and Greenwich, but occasionally in Croydon too. So we can put people in contact with that service. The Metro Bridge LGBTQ plus youth group is a youth group that's been running for, I think, about 15 or 16 years now. It's one of our longest running LGBT groups. It's for young people who identify as LGBTQ plus, aged between 11 and 25 in Croydon. It takes place every Tuesday. It's a facilitated safe space. We provide one-to-one support and can refer people to other services within Metro. There's an opportunity for LGBT people, young people, to meet other LGBT young people, to get support and also have some fun. They usually have snacks and hang out together. Sometimes they talk about identity, relationships, well-being. They usually have a winter ball in December with dancing, pizza and cake. And they also organise trips to other events to visit galleries, the Croydon Pride and UK Black Pride. It's worth noting, though, at the moment, obviously with the current COVID-19 crisis, that a lot of the face-to-face services that we'd normally be running are not running in a face-to-face capacity. And what we've done is that we've had to embrace technology, and we're providing a lot of these services online through Zoom and through other video chats services. And what we're finding is that actually we've maintained the same sort of levels of people participating, and actually having a few more people coming in from other areas that don't have the service in the Croydon, like we do in the Croydon area. Nicola is our Croydon youth worker. So the last two services I'm going to mention before moving on to my new service is got the relationship and sex education training, and this is provided by Joe Hayter. It's a useful, effective and age-appropriate relationship and sex education for staff and work with children and young people. The sessions are run under the principle of being a safe space for people to ask questions. It does come at a cost, so at the moment this is unfunded, so there is a charge to the people who want to take this training up. The training is typically 2 to 3 hours long, and the contact is on our website, which is the development@metrocharity.org.uk. So that's the team that are running the training sessions for us. The other training that we offer, and this actually has evolved. So this was the challenging homophobic, biphobic and transphobic LGBT bullying training, but it's had a change of name and is now referred to as sexual orientation and gender identity awareness training. And the idea is that to take a broader approach to discussing LGBT issues beyond just talking about homophobia, biphobia and transphobia. So it's really looking at how organisations can work with the LGBTQ communities to make their organisations a safer place for the people who want to use their services. So thank you for listening to the part about the services. Now I'm going to move on to talking about our new service, which is the Metro Safer Croydon Hate Crime Service. This is support to report and address anti-LGBT hate crime in Croydon. As the councillor said earlier on, we do know that hate crime unfortunately is on the rise and we need to do something about it. So this is a 3-year project. It started in April. It has a part-time member of staff, which is myself, working 3 days a week. So I'll be working Wednesday to Friday from 10 AM to 5 PM. And I will eventually be based at Croydon Voluntary Action. Now, obviously, under the current circumstance, I'm working from home, but the idea is as soon as we can return to the offices, I'll be setting up shop at the Croydon Voluntary Action Centre, and that will be the focus for our service provision. Now, what is hate crime? So hate crime is defined as any criminal act motivated by prejudice towards someone because of their actual or perceived membership of a particular group. So what that means is, in the sense of to be a hate crime incidents, which are things that don't break the law, and then there are criminal acts that do break the law. Now, part of what we're doing is actually we want to encourage people to report the incidents so we can prevent them becoming crimes, because we'd rather nip the problem in the bud and prevent that from happening than actually be dealing with people who actually have those experiences, because in many situations we can actually step in at an early stage or an earlier stage and stop this from happening, and that's what we really want to do. So however small or irrelevant or unimportant you may think it is important to let us know what's happening. So do pick up the phone or drop us an email and say, you know, Mark, there's something happening in this area of the borough, can you look into it? And I will pull the strings and talk to the people, and we'll look at it and see what we can do to stop it. So since 2007, 5 groups have been recognised, which are disability, faith, race, gender identity and sexual orientation. So the focus of our work will be on sexual orientation, working with the LGBTQ communities. but we're also going to be looking at how we work with the disabled community as well. As the councillors mentioned, there is already Stop Hate UK, which provide a generic service covering all the hate crime strands. So that helpline service is there if you need to speak to someone. Greater Manchester Police also recognises hate crimes directed at people due to alternative subcultures. This came out of there was Sophie Lancaster, who was a goth, who was with her boyfriend in a park and who was attacked, and unfortunately she died from the injuries that she sustained. And so there was a campaign locally to recognise hate crime that's targeted against alternative subcultures. That's not been adopted by all the police services around the UK yet, but it's something that the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is campaigning for. So why is this service needed? So we know, and so these, you can see these bar charts, and this is the pattern of hate crime reporting this is provided to us by the MPS Independent LGBT Advisory Group. Now they get a freedom of information request in every month to get the latest stats, and so you can see that in the last 2 to 3 years, the levels of homophobic hate crime has been increasing quite steadily. Now that could be a good thing, because it could be that more people are coming forward and reporting what's happening, and so we're getting a handle of what's really taking place and dealing with it. Or it could mean that there's a rise in actual hate crime cases. Now we don't know, because we don't have the data to sort of decide the decision one way or the other. So I'm of the mind that actually, whilst it's rising, we need to put more effort into tackling it. So we know from Stonewall survey that 4 in 5 LGBT people don't report hate crime that they're experiencing. 1 in 5 have experienced hate crime in the last 12 months. 2 in 5 trans people have experienced hate crime because of their gender identity. And we know that 1 in 10 LGBT and 1 in 4 trans people have experienced online abuse. The bottom line for us is nobody should be experiencing this abuse alone, and that's why we're setting up this service. So the service we'll get out there and we'll promote hate crime awareness. We'll let people know what hate crime is and what they can do about it. We'll provide a one-to-one service to members of the LGBT community in Croydon. We'll provide information and advice to individuals, groups and organisations about hate crime. So it's not just about those people being attacked, it's about the communities working together to see how we can all stop this happening. We'll deliver opportunities for professional hate crime training. We'll organise outreach events and engagement activities, and we'll participate in local and regional forums, working with others to address hate crime. So the important thing to be aware of is there's counter-extremism forum within Croydon that I will be attending, but I also sit on the MPS Hate Crime Diamond Group, which reports into the Met Police, and I also sit on the London Hate Crime Panel, which reports into the Mayor of London. So there's all these different boards and channels that we can, once we're aware of what's happening, that we can flag these incidents up and hopefully get them to stop. So there's a picture of me out giving, as I would be if COVID wasn't happening at the moment. But we are hoping to still do stuff like this online, so you'll be able to contact me by email and telephone anyway. So who will use this service? So people who want to speak to someone about anti-LGBT hate crime that they have experienced or witnessed. It's not just for those people experiencing it, but you might see this happening to someone else. And if that happens, tell us about it, because it might be that the person who's been attacked isn't confident enough or brave enough to come forward. There may be other things going on in their life that prevent them reporting what's happened to them, whereas you can be their lifeline. By reporting it, you can at least help us identify that there's been a problem and address it. People who want us to report an incident for them. So sometimes, for whatever reason, people don't want to go to the police and don't want to enter into that sort of relationship. We can take the report and put it through anonymously. It doesn't have the same outcome in the sense of it won't end in someone going through the whole criminal justice system and those who committed the crimes being brought to justice in that sense, because to do that you actually do need people to come forward to stand up and say this is what happened. But what it will mean is we can identify and hopefully stop those people from doing what they're doing, even though we don't take them through the court process. People who would like to help to report an incident themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, we would rather people were reporting this directly themselves, but we're always going to be there to help you if that's not the case. People who need support because they're affected by anti-LGBT hate crime. We know that hate crimes have an impact on people. I've been a victim of hate crime myself, so I know what it's like, and the times when I could talk about it and times when I couldn't talk about it. So we do provide LGBT counselling services, and we're in contact with other organisations that provide similar services as well. So if you don't want to come through us, there's always someone else that you can go through. And it's what we're really about is actually making all those connections to get you the best help we can provide. There'll be people who are interested in volunteering with Metro to help us tackle anti-LGBT hate crime in Croydon. We've seen this work very successfully in other boroughs. I've worked in Tower Hamlets, for example, and they have a team of hate crime ambassadors who work alongside those people working on the front line to actually provide peer-to-peer support. And they come out and help us on stalls and with our campaigns. And it's we are nothing without our volunteers. It's like, you help us spread the word. So if you're interested in volunteering, do get in contact. And we'll also work with people who represent partner organisations who want to work, who want to tackle hate crime in the borough. So how will this work in practice? So basically, if you've experienced or witnessed hate crime, you'll give us a call or send us an email. We'll arrange a meeting to listen to what's happened. Together, we'll explore what can be done, what your options are. You might not want to go to the police or take it any further. You might just want to let us know that happened, and that could be the end of it. Or you might want to tap into advice and support services and go down that route. That's perfectly fine. It's all about us giving you the options, but you making the choices of what's right for you. We'll provide the advice, advocacy and support, and with your permission, we may refer you on to other services. For example, we know victim support do a great job when it comes to cases going to the court. So what we would do is set you up with a meeting with victim support and support you with that relationship. We also know there's a problem with biphobia, transphobia and homophobia in other organisations. So wherever we refer you to, we would expect them to be treating members of the LGBT community in the right way and to a certain standard with dignity and respect at all times. But we're there as a fallback position that if you ever encounter any problems with any other services, again, let us know, because then we can step in and do the right things to address that. We will do our best to support you to report hate crime. And that goes across the board, all forms of hate crime. I'm always of a mind that even if I can't provide the help myself, I will do whatever I can to get you to a person who can. So some of the key partners we're working with, and this is why this is sort of really important, because no one organisation can provide all these services to all people because of the diversity, understanding of diversity that's required. So alternative subcultures, we'll refer to the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. Disability, we'll talk to Inclusion London and some of the disabled people's organisations that exist, like Stay Safe East, Choice in Hackney, and there'll be local organisations in Croydon. With members of the faith community, we work with Community Security Trust and Tell Mama, so they deal with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Gender identity, now we will work, we can provide that support ourselves, but we're also working partnership in Gallup. Race, you have the monitoring group, Report Racism and Stop Hate UK. Now, the monitoring group have a really long history of working with Black and Asian communities. They were there for Stephen Lawrence, and they've been involved in a number of other cases that have happened since then. Report Racism is an organisation that works with the Roma Gypsy traveller communities, and it's really important that there is no form of acceptable racism or discrimination, and some of the hate that's directed at the Roma Gypsy traveller communities, it's not acceptable, and we need to stand together to make sure that that's stopped as well. And Stop Hate UK, who are providing the helpline service within the borough. And again, with sexuality, an alternative organisation to Metro, it would be Gallup as well. We'll also be working with local authorities, so British Transport Police. We know hate crime happens when people are travelling on public transport. We'll work with Crime Stoppers, and that's for people who actually want to remain 100% anonymous and don't want to even speak to Metro or to other support agencies. They will take a call and not record any details apart from what happens, and then pass that on so something can be done. There's Croydon Council and Metropolitan Police Service and victim support. And that's the end of my presentation. So So the key sort of contact information for our service is that if you need help, give us a call. The number is 0208 305 5003. You'll come through, and that comes through to the community team who are responsible, who work together covering a number of services. But as soon as you get through to them, they'll know if you ask for Mark or the Croydon Hate Crime Service or Hate Crime Officer, they'll put you through to me. We also run hate crime services in Lewisham and Greenwich. So if people from those boroughs or have watched this video, again, use this number and then we'll put you through to the two people who cover hate crime in those two boroughs. And Safer and metrocharity.org.uk is the main email to use. Once you come through, you'll then be given my direct email, so that when we're working on cases, we'll build up that direct relationship, but that will come from the first meeting when we sit down and talk about this together. So that's everything from me. We were going to try and see if we have Eileen, who's the hate crime officer from Metropolitan Police Service. Now, in recent years, the Metropolitan Police have reorganised themselves. So instead of being 32 borough units, they're now into 12 borough command units. And Eileen is thankfully one of the 12 hate crime officers covering London, and she covers Croydon, Bromley and Sutton. So let's see if Eileen can come online.
Hello.
Hello there, we can hear you clearly.
Hi.
Hi. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at the Metropolitan Police?
So my name is Eileen Jenkins. I'm a police officer for the Metropolitan Police. As you said, I cover Croydon, Bromley and Sutton as the hate crime coordinator. I've only recently really taken over the role, as I was working with my colleague Healey. But now we've sort of divided our roles, so she deals with the faith side and I will deal with the hate side. So I'm just picking up on everything really, and I'm just listening to see what's going on and what's around. And yeah, I've actually been back to work for only for 2 weeks, so I'm a little bit slow in coming forward with all that. But yeah, I mean, sorry. So recently I've been dealing with getting hate crime packs sent out to officers. They'll be disseminated to sort of local schools, place of worship, yeah, things like that, community centres and that sort of thing. So that's what I've been doing today and this week. So yeah, that's really me. I mean, that's what I've got at the moment for you. I'm sure there's lots more for me to be getting on with, and at some point, I'm sorry, Nameen's been handing stuff over to me and, you know, letting me know what I should be doing and what's expected. So I will be hopefully filling those boots. I do work part-time though, so I'm not in all, you know, I don't do consistent hours throughout the week, but when I am available, I will be here for support to anyone that needs it. Obviously available by email and that sort of thing, so I am around.
Mark, can I add something?
Yes.
Hi Eileen, and thank you for that. Eileen's actually selling herself quite short. We've done quite a lot of work over the past year, especially during this lockdown, so we're very reactive to community tensions. We meet every 2 weeks over the full lockdown. As we've eased out of lockdown, we've had monthly meetings, and it's a BCU-wide meeting with the faith and hate crime officers across all 3 boroughs. We pick up any local tensions and direct work. So as I said, we've identified there's a large piece of work to be done within our migrant refugee communities, and myself and Eileen will be doing that next week over National Hate Crime Awareness Week. We're actually going to be visiting all the hostels and hotels that house our refugee community to provide them with resource packs. We also are trying to tap in and work with our faith community. So Eileen will be now, as a new hate crime Met officer, be sitting on the Faith Together steering group, and that way we do a lot of interfaith work with the faith community. We recently, following the death of Sergeant Matt Ratana, we presented a art tribute to Croydon Custody Suite last week. And we're actually, at the launch of National Hate Crime Awareness Week, going to be doing a video presentation that will be available on all social media platforms, promoting Faith Together Croydon and showing that Croydon as a borough, faith communities have come together to support the police and all those that have been victim of hate. So forgive Eileen, she's done quite a lot of work, and there's a lot more work to be done. We also take part in our yearly interfaith bike ride. The police also sit on that steering group for that. And Eileen is also a member of the newly formed Hate and Extremism Board. That board, as I said before, is made up of a number of statutory partners as well as our voluntary sector organisations. We come together on a bi-monthly, every bi-month, and we discuss the trends and discuss what kind of actions or what kind of work we can do to tackle hate crime across the borough. So there is a lot of joint partnership work, and I'm pleased that Croydon does work we do take a partnership approach. It's not just the council working in one area. We come together as statutory service, but more importantly, we work with our voluntary sector partners, including Metro City, which I think the voluntary sector is the ones that are on the ground, and we need to work with them in order to ensure that we tackle hate crime throughout the year. So that's all I wanted to add. So Eileen, sorry about that. I just had to add that in.
Thank you very much, Sharon. So for the final part of this session, what we were going to do was Taz is going to ask me a series of questions, so the question and answer session, really to give people an opportunity to find out who I am and what I'll be doing in this role. So if I pass over to Taz to...
Hello there. One thing that I've found, because I manage huge amounts of services, and a couple of those are a hate crime, LGBT hate crime in Greenwich and Lewisham. And one experience that I've had that I've really learned from in terms of service delivery is there needs to be trust. There needs to be trust, and there needs to be a member of staff who is accessible for the community. And people with protected characteristics experience like daily micro expressions all the time, and it can really knock your confidence, and it can create a mistrust and a distrust within services and coming forward. So this is the reason why we wanted to have this little bit here, is because I think Mark's very charismatic and welcoming, and I want the community to experience that from him and get to know his face. So it builds that trust and rapport with the community. So I just want to start, and you've mentioned it already, about how long you've worked at Metro and what did you do before?
Okay, so I started on the 12th of August, so I've only been here, I think, 7 weeks working from home. So that's been quite an experience in the sense because I've not had any physical contact with any members of staff really. It's all been online through Zoom. And that's this crazy new world that we're living in at the moment. But I think that as well as being a baptism of fire, it's also given me the opportunity, actually, this is how client work is going to be going forward in the short term until we can get back to sort of meeting people face to face. Before working at Metro, I spent 3.5 years at REAL, which is a disabled people's organisation in Tower Hamlets. I was the engagement and communications coordinator looking after 3 projects, and one of them was disability hate crime, setting up a third-party reporting service for disabled people living in the borough. And I was also involved in the Local Voices Project, which is a group of disabled people working for disabled people to tackle disabled people's issues in Tower Hamlets. So I'm really passionate. I'm making sure that whatever we do, it needs to be accessible to all members of society, because everything, why isn't everything accessible? It's just, 2020. I know it's been a bad year, but there's no excuse. We need to be there across all borders. Before that, I spent 3 years as Lambeth's hate crime prevention coordinator. So I was there when a young man, there was an acid attack outside I think it was one of the local nightclubs. So I actually helped that person and liaised with with all the people within the council that needed to respond to that incident. We had another couple who had been attacked on the South Bank, and so I worked with them, and what they wanted to do was actually to organise a Reclaim the Night march, and we organised that along the South Bank where the attack had happened to a local bar where they wanted to finish. And that we had about 200 to 300 people turn up for that, so it was really a sort of empowering moment, really, not just for them but also for the community. And I think when things happen, we need to find ways of actually coming together and responding in a positive way that gives us the lie, within the community. Before that, so I'm 50 now, but when for many years I'd worked in retail, so I'd worked at Selfridges and Casio and a few other places. But when I hit 40, I said, right, what I really want to do is work in community centres. And so for 2 years, I worked at the Green Man Community Centre on the Strawberry Vale estate, working with like 300 to 400 local residents to run their centre on their behalf. So my spirit really is actually working with people and on the ground, doing the things that just need to be done. That's me, really.
Okay. I just one thing also that I've noticed working within the hate crime services is that people who have experienced a hate crime often end up experiencing another hate crime, and it can make you feel quite fragile. And we like to take that kind of trauma-informed approach and holistic approach to people's needs. So without going into too much detail, and if it's not too personal, have you ever experienced a hate crime? And if you have, how does that impact on the way you work? How does that influence the way you work?
It's a good question, and yes, I have experienced. So as an openly gay man from the age of 17, I've unfortunately encountered hate crime quite a few times. So I think my first experiences were at school, where I was labelled as gay before I even knew what the word gay was. So and I did ask for help, and the teachers didn't help because they didn't know what to do. There was Section 28 there at the time, which really stopped them stepping forward. I think there was a lot of fear when I was younger. And thankfully that's changing, and thankfully we've got the training for the relationships and sex education. So I'm really pleased to see that develop within the communities. The next time, when I was 18, I'd been to a local gay bar, walking home, dragged into an alleyway, kicked and sort of beaten black and blue on the floor. And again, I didn't report, because at that age, I was 18, the age of consent was 21. And I'm thinking, so there'll be young people who will get homophobically attacked, who live with their parents, who can't do anything or feel they can't do anything. But we need to provide a service for them so that we can be that port for them to call. Sadly, I witnessed my partner being attacked. We'd been to a concert, walking home, and the guy stopped in front of us wearing a crash helmet and headbutted him. And I initially froze. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And he headbutted him 3 times, but as he went to do the 3rd time, something inside me, and I fought back. I grabbed him, knocked him to the floor. Now that left me. So sometimes when something happens, we run away from a situation. Sometimes we run into a situation, but I didn't feel proud fighting back, because I felt I'd let myself down in some way, which is an odd thing, really. But I don't know where I'm going with this one.
No, I think what you've just demonstrated is all those different reactions to the situation are completely normal, and is what people are going to be experiencing. Yeah. And it's a normal reaction to either want to fight or run away or to freeze, and I think it's trying to manage those kind of feelings around, particularly with reporting. And I know that you might have a good story to tell in terms of a report that maybe ended in,
So more recently, so I've always been a gay guy who likes to hold my partner's hand, and I think that sometimes is one of the reasons why I get attacked. But I don't think it should be a deterrent for holding hands. I think actually more people need to hold hands, and because if people don't see it in the communities, we're not going to make it a reality for people to be free to be themselves. So it's something personally I've always, I'm an affectionate guy, I'm going to show affection. But 4 lads in a car shouted out "batty boy," and other homophobic remarks. And for some reason, I just got out a notepad and I just wrote the car number down, the number plate, and the driver of the car suddenly pulled the car out of the traffic, parked around the corner, and these guys started getting out of the car, running towards us. One threw a bottle. But by that time, I'd actually whipped my phone out, phoned the police, and was right. So just about to be attacked. This is the car registration plate. They're running towards me now. I need immediate help straight away. And the guys running towards me actually said, carry on. I'm on the phone to the police. If you want to do this, do this. But the police are on the way. And the guys lost their courage and ran back to the car and drove away. 5 minutes later, they're stopped by a police car because they had the registration plate. All 4 of them arrested on the scene. I'm taken around in a police car to identify them on the spot. It did go to court, and 2 of them, the driver for aiding and abetting and the passenger for throwing the bottle, both got criminal records and community service, 140 hours and 150 hours. And to me, that was just, so I didn't have to run away. I didn't have to be aggressive. I just had to remain calm. And part of this is about actually saying to people, we know the police have an operational response to hate crime. If this happens, they do this. But we as individuals and members of the community need to say, if it happens, how can we calmly respond and deal with it in the best way so that actually we bring justice to those who are causing it, but don't put ourselves at risk. And I am mindful in the sense that sometimes things happen on the streets where people bait you to sort of, they'll be homophobic. It's not always the best thing to jump into a situation. Ian Bainham, 62-year-old gay man walking through Trafalgar Square, responded to homophobic hate crime that was hate that was directed to him. He ended up knocked unconscious in a coma for 4 weeks and unfortunately died of the injuries he sustained. Now, what I take away from that is that before he was attacked by those 3 young people, those people had been drunk and abusing others walking through Trafalgar Square. Now, if anyone had picked up the phone and said, look, local police, there's 3 young people, they're drunk and they're abusing people, the police could have sent someone down, spoken to these young people and potentially moved them on and nipped that situation in the bud. And that's what our service is about. It's actually, we're the helpline for the community to say, actually, this is happening. Let's stop it before it gets out of control, before somebody is killed or injured.
And I think that illustrates and demonstrates the real necessity, really, of feeling comfortable enough to report, and whether how small an incident sometimes it ends up being actually quite a big outcome. So usually people are quite verbally abusive to begin with, and that can, as you say, escalate in violence. But if that is nipped in the bud quickly, or police are aware, you don't know if 200 other complaints have been made against that person, you can identify the needs, and as mentioned earlier about the resources can be put in place, you can identify hotspots, and and really it's to build confidence to say that it's wrong as well. It's wrong in our society to have those kind of prejudice and negative views that impact on people's lives.
So one of the things I've dealt with before was a disabled man who's walking past a school, and he was abused by 4 young people who actually did the gestures and were taking, abused him because of the way that he was walking. And it made him, he's someone who suffered from cerebral palsy and had speech impediment issues as well. And it really made him feel quite intimidated and scared to walk past that school again. So that got reported up to us, but we couldn't identify who the 4 young people were. So what we did, we actually approached the school and we said, look, there's been an incident with 4 people wearing your school uniform, abusing a gentleman walking past your venue, your school. Can we come in and do a talk to the to the whole school? And they set up assemblies so we could go in and talk. And through that, through actually working through peer education and getting the youngsters to talk about their own experiences, hopefully we've helped to actually prevent that happening again. And always important, going back to that man and saying, look, this is what we've done, and making sure that he's in a position where he actually feels confident and safe to walk past that school again. Because, you know, people go through, I hate the word victims. I don't want anyone to be victims, but there's different states. So there's victim, survivor, and then there's life. And our job is to take someone who's been a victim, get them through the survivor stage and back to the life stage as quickly as we can, at their own pace. I mean, it's a journey, and it's different for everybody that we work with.
Okay, I can see that you're really passionate about hate crime, and you have a lot of enthusiasm about it. What do you do in your spare time?
Hate crime. What I've done is in my life is that I've taken the negative experiences I've had and actually used that to empower, not just work, but I spend a lot of time doing charity work. So I run a national charity called 172430 National Hate Crime Awareness Week, and this started after the death of Ian Bainham. It was when he was attacked, we organised the first London vigil that got 10,000 people down to Trafalgar Square. And from then, we've organised National Hate Crime Awareness Week every year since 2012. And the idea there is local authorities, key people, and communities affected by hate crime working together to tackle local hate crime issues. There's not the week doesn't have an agenda in the sense it says, right, we're just focusing on this, because every area around the UK has different forms of hate crime that they need to address. So it's getting people to address those local issues, whatever that issue is, are relevant to them. And I love it. It's a lot of hard work, especially at this time of year, but it's making things happen. The boxes that we get 25,000 from the Mayor of London, and we've done 300 boxes out all over London where people are organising events. We'll be working with Sharon, the council, next week. They've got an event on the 14th of October. We have a website, a Google website, where we've got dots of events happening all around the UK. But that's my charity hat, not my Metro hat.
And I think that shows how your lived experience has contributed to helping so many others and trying to improve the future of so many more. So thank you.
And it's amazing. So when we did the vigil for Ian Bainham, the most important thing for me was that somebody was able to take the video of what happened back to his 90-year-old mum and say, look, we did this for Ian. And her comment was, at least people cared about her son. And to me, that's the moment that I cherish most, is actually that moment where you've done a good job and that person is actually able to continue to be themselves, or to sort of reclaim their happiness, because no one should suffer hate crime alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll end there, I think. So just want to say thank you to everybody who's been involved today. If there is anyone who has experienced or witnessed hate crime, please do get in contact. We are here to help. Thank you to all the panelists today. And I'm looking forward to the council's event on the 14th of October next week. So thank you very much.